We are live now. Please go ahead.
Your Excellency Ajay Bisaria, High Commissioner of India to Canada, Senior Vice President of ASSOCHAM, Vineet Agarwalji, Arun Khuranaji from Solace, Jagdish Mitra from Tech Mahindra, Akshay Chaturvedi from ICICI Bank Canada, Rajiv Ji from Bombardier, Managing Director of Bombardier Transportation, my dear friend Charu, esteemed ASSOCHAM members, friends from industry, stakeholders on the India-Canada partnership, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very, very warm welcome to all of you for this session in India in the evening and the morning of Canada. So thank you so much for joining all of you. I hope all of you are doing very well in this trying, tested times of COVID-19, which has gripped the entire world. Health has become a major stake for all, and I think that's primarily area of concern. And the second area is the way they said, Jaan or Jahan dono chahiye. So what is more important is also the business and the jobs. And these two, three things put together is a construct of what we all need to do to ensure that tomorrow is better. Governments across the world, industry across the world is trying to grapple with the situation. Things are not easy, and the timelines that one is looking at are rather uncertain in terms of how and when we are going to be on the other side of the tunnel. We do see the light at the other side, but it is definitely not, we really can't put a number to the months that this pain is going to last. So therefore, we'll have to learn how to live with the way it is. The grit and resilience of everybody has been tested, and I think tested well enough. At least mine is. We have survived. We are here. We all of us are here. So I'm sure we will see this through, and we will be on the other side of the tunnel. But as we come out of this tunnel, very clearly we're going to see a very different world. And as we are going through the journey through this tunnel, I think everything around us is changing. People are changing. The way things are being discussed and consumed is changing. A very sense that we learned to work from home in about a few months. I mean, we were up and about in a week. I would have never imagined that this would have been an acceptable norm in India, even for the next 5 years. But this is something which is happening, and companies like IT companies, we have Tech Mahindra here, would talk about the success of India. We have shown to the world that it is possible to work from home, and everything is functioning without a glitch across sectors that one is talking about. I think education, teaching students in India, providing health and health infrastructure and health facilities to people online. These are great changes that have really taken place. Obviously, there's a huge gap that needs to be filled, but these are also opportunities that one is talking about. Ajayji, thank you so much, Your Excellency, that you have agreed to be with us this evening. And I must put on record a deep appreciation for your incessant efforts that you have made. As we're talking about 100 Vande Bharat missions from Canada to India, where you have helped move people from stranded people in Canada across Canada. And people who know Canada, it's not very easy to move people around because it's a very large piece of land. And the whole team, congratulations to you under your leadership. The whole team was put this together. It is also very assuring to see, while the world is not allowed to enter the borders of Canada, the travel bubble of India is expanded within the landmass. And so, again, a very important step. And thanks to you and your leadership, that such a thing has really happened. While all this was also happening, I think a very important thing, we were also continuously engaging with the political setup to ensure continuity of strategic dialogue and most importantly, the business continuity that one is talking about between India and Canada, which is very essential and about. And that's precisely what ASSOCHAM was doing as we were going through this phase. And our efforts have also been towards working with the governments at the center, at the state, with the industry, domestic or international, to pinpoint the areas of disruption, find areas of solutions, and then go into the implementation phase. And with the great pride, we do say this, that we did make a major contribution. I'm very proud that everyone in my team, the industry of India, has put together ourselves, and we have come out through this phase of opening up and operating. While we have still got lockdowns and lockouts at various places, but I think we have about 60 to 70% of the economy up and about. There are certain challenging areas for example, tourism, aviation, hotel, restaurant industry, but I think quite a large chunk of business is up and about. This black swan event was such a large event, and no company in the world, no government in the world ever factored this risk. When we run the businesses, we always talk about de-risking the whole piece of it, but I think this was impossible. I mean, and even going forward, I don't know if whether we will be ever be able to measure out the risk of such a happening within this ecosystem that one is talking about. But what is going to happen is that the governments, the businesses, and I'm talking about large corporates, small businesses, small traders, everybody runs around a strategic initiative of one's own business. And therefore, each one of those businesses will have to rethink completely. And I've already spoken about the new world. So how consumption, how products, how services would be desired in this new world. And therefore, all businesses will have to really look at this piece, at this space. We will have to look at localization of supply chains. So therefore, indigenization of critical components is going to be very, very critical. And this whole piece is actually going to happen with a hat which we have never used before. We'll have to be highly innovative to be able to produce something which is unknown and unheard. And therefore, that's the way we will have to work to get into this new era of restarting business. And the cornerstone for all this is going to be health, safety, hygiene, because anything and everything is going to go through this lens when people are going to speak and talk about. The world has given us huge opportunities as we are talking about a lot of pessimism as well. And for example, India had not a single mask or a PPE with us. And as the Honorable Prime Minister said in his speech, today we make so many of them that we can supply to the world. And therefore, how many such opportunities that exist for us and the Canadian companies that we can jointly work together, and Atmanirbhar Bharat, the clarion call of the Prime Minister of this country, how can we leverage from this benefit that one is talking about? India is a huge market. It's just not about manufacturing and supplying to the world. You get 1.5 billion people waiting to consume and the middle class growing. So therefore, it's a huge opportunity for Indian and Canadian companies put together to put our arms around this and see to it that we emerge with huge opportunities. I was also very pleasantly, I was appraised of this, that departmental plan of 2021 of Government of Canada is talking about how bilateral relationships can improve in the Asian and the Pacific region, and India to play a larger role, and including Japan, South Korea, and Singapore. So I'm sure both countries, under your leadership, your continuous strategic dialogues with them, will make the maximum of such things. There are many, many such examples, but I'll talk about the Indian diaspora that has made a huge impact in this country, and therefore they play a significant role that one is talking about. They have brought in people-to-people contact. They have brought cultural connects. Indians today are sitting in positions, they are ministers, they are education ties, they are non-stop flights, they are two-way tourisms, immigrations that are taking place, travel tourism, as well as business. So these are up and increasing. Also, there's a huge demand for labor within that country. When I say labor, I'm not talking about blue-collar labor alone. I'm talking about demand for workforce in Canada is huge. And if you look at this, I think India can really benefit by providing the right skilled people, educated people to be supplied for this demand that the country is going to show. And obviously, there's an intrinsic benefit to us because as a country, we get a lot of remittances, and that's good for domestic industry. Likewise, I think Canada can also be used to get knowledge, technical knowledge, and which could flow into India, help us develop a competitiveness so that we can build our manufacturing and export. Obviously, we do it with many countries, but Canada could play a very important role in artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, pharmaceuticals, startups, healthcare, and name it. And there are so many more things that these relationships can give us fruit to. And finally, 2 points before I would close and request Vinitji to share with us his thoughts. I think there are about 1,000 plus MSMEs that work from Canada in India. And I think this number is going to go really large and big. There will be a lot of Indian companies, joint ventures, partnerships that are going to take place, and special push of Make in India with Government of India, with ease of doing business and ecosystem improving, and a lot of manufacturing coming here. There's a huge opportunity that does. And finally, like I said, there's a huge market. So investments into India from Canada and Canadian companies, whether Canadian owned or Indian Canadian owned, are something which are extremely welcome. With these few words, thank you so much, Your Excellency, for joining us. And may I now request Vineet Agarwalji, Senior Vice President of ASSOCHAM, to share with us his welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Ajay Bisaria, High Commissioner of India to Canada, my fellow delegates, Charu and all the other delegates who have joined us today, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure, and I'm delighted to welcome you today at this ASSOCHAM webinar on how India and Canada can advance their commercial as well as economic partnership. As ASSOCHAM is celebrating its 100th year, we've been trying to reach out to different countries. Specifically, we are looking at countries where we can use the Prime Minister's clarion call of Atmanirbhar Bharat to see how we can attract global value chains to India. And in that outreach, this is one of them where we are trying to see how we can get Canadian companies to come to India, and ultimately also Indian companies that can go to Canada and ultimately help both the economies. Of course, both our prime ministers have visited each other and have had a very bonhomie relationship. Canada is one of the countries which everyone, I would say, loves in more ways than one. We have a lot of course, as Mr. Sood just mentioned about the diaspora, but also a large number of Indian students that are going to Canada to study. I have colleagues that are going, whose kids are going even this year as we speak. Maybe some of them are having online classes, but the intent is to go there and study because they're very attracted by the inclusiveness and the friendly way that Canada reflects itself on the global stage. That is something that has been very attractive to a lot of students, considering what has been happening in the last 4 years and at Canada's neighbors. So overall, the trade between India and Canada is still very restricted. So I think about $7 billion as per 2019, and the scope is just immense. I have friends who have seen investments coming in from the Canadian pension funds, and that number is close to $22 billion in India, and certainly it can rise substantially in the next few years. Mr. Sood also mentioned about Canadian companies in India. I think that number is again very, very minuscule in terms of the relationship we can build, and especially in areas like energy cooperation, science and technology, agriculture. Again, I have several friends who've been importing products from Canada on a regular basis, be it different kinds of pulses or different kinds of other agri commodities. There are other areas, including information technology, financial services, education space, are really areas that we can concentrate to grow this relationship to the next level. I would not like to say much more, but we would love to listen from Your Excellency to see how we can further this trade and how ASSOCHAM can be involved in helping businesses to go to Canada and businesses coming from Canada to India. Thank you so much for joining us today.
So, thank you, Vinitji. So you see, my dear friend Charu is here. She's from Primus Partners. She helps us get the gender diversity on this panel. So thank you very, very much, Charu. You're more than welcome over here. And to do the honors, I would now invite you to please take care of the next session, please. Over to you, Charu. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. Warm welcome to our esteemed panel, to the session that will explore a long-standing partnership between India and Canada to promote bilateral cooperation. The two countries are cooperating on a host of issues, and more than 2,000 Canadian companies are operating in India. India has emerged as one of the fastest growing export markets of Canada. Trade has risen to 62% in the past 5 years. So we look forward to this session, and now I request Jagdish Mitra ji to share his views, please. Mr. Mitra is the Chief Strategic Officer and Head of Growth at Tech Mahindra, where he heads the Global Business Growth Charter focusing on enterprise business. Mr. Mitra, your remarks, please.
Thank you, Charu. Thank you for the opportunity. His Excellency Ajay Bisaria ji, great to meet you again. It was good to be a part of your evening farewell at the Canada House when you were leaving. And good to see you that you are back there and taking our mission and story forward. And thanks part of the panel. I think and I think Deepak mentioned it, so I'm going to touch base on it. Obviously, from an industry perspective, information technology or IT services relies significantly on exports and relies a lot on doing business outside of India. And North America is, for most of us, me and our peers in the IT industry, is our biggest market. Within North America, obviously, US is the biggest market, but Canada is not too small in terms of the opportunity that we work with. And I think that has helped because of the following reasons. One, I think Vineet mentioned a bit about education, about the setup and the system that Canada offers, which basically creates great opportunity for talent to be brought together and working together. Second is the ability for the government's focus and being on technology. So, there is significant effort in defining huge amount of folks on doing technology related businesses, and we've been able to take advantage of that in building talent and capability and solutions in that market. Also, the business over there has been very strong in terms of engagement. I see one of my customers here in the panel from Bombardier, Rajiv. Look, we are glad to catch up with you here, but I think Bombardier has been a great customer of Tech Mahindra, and we've been able to build business in Canada strongly at the back of some of these extremely strong banks, manufacturing setups, oil and gas and telecom companies that we've been. Opportunity lies in terms of areas that we can probably look at where India and Canada can do better. When from a global trade perspective, obviously the huge opportunity, because I don't think we've even scratched the surface compared to what India and Canada's potential is. And it's really something that we probably need to look at much more stronger. I think the nature of work that we need to probably look at is the ability, I break it down into two blocks. One block, which is India and Canada building together for possible today in technology, absolutely, with our skills and talent, and with the investment that Canada does and with its ecosystems that it has created in and around Waterloo and a couple of other places, which I personally have visited and spent time with them. There's some amazing work happening, and there's an opportunity for us to jointly create for the market rather than what we call in our terms sell to each other, but to create for a global world. And in that, those super clusters can play an extensive role. For example, we see great opportunity in the work of factory of the future, which is primarily related with the IoT enablement and industrial solutions that we are working with. We get to see a lot of work around, again, Canada's initiative around autonomous, and therefore there is an opportunity for us to create solutions around the autonomous capabilities. The third area that we are doing a lot of work around is around AI and machine learning as a horizontal. So with some of the work that Canada does in Vector and Tech Mahindra, and so overall Indian IT services focus around AI and machine learning as the next level. So if you look at the changes that are happening in IT services as we start to move from a pre-COVID era to a post-COVID era, there is a lot of work that's happening around digital at a speed of light. So basically, all our customers are expecting deployment of digital in scale and speed and scope, which is basically why it's driving the whole growth around digital. So factory of the future, automation around the smart factory, second area around, as I said, in terms of enabling the whole growth of smart centers. And from a telecom perspective, we see a great opportunity both for telecom and enterprise for both our collaborations around 5G. So both 5G related that I mentioned is what I think the Indian IT industry as the as well as the technology players in Canada have an opportunity to create business for the world. The second part obviously is trade, which is, we selling to each other or doing business with each other as a market. We obviously see great opportunities for Indian businesses continuing to drive growth in Canada. Businesses with the help of more localization. So we, for example, as a company have set up at least 3 centers. We have 2,000 plus Tech Mahindra associates, mainly about 60% of them local in Canada, which we work with. And second part of the discussion is Canadian companies working in India. Now, what I have typically engaged, or we have as a company, and NASSCOM from that perspective has also got engaged, is its ability to bring some of the startups with a bigger market in India. Now, there is some great technology being developed there, but the market opportunity that available in India, as we all know, in terms of scale of testing those new age technologies is significant. So that's where I would leave it. Opportunity for us is in both fronts, absolutely across digital, and we both bring complementary skills. There is great investment in those areas of clusters that Canada has put together, and there's skill and talent that India brings together, and today about to take the next leap from what we got.
Thank you, Mr. Mitra. Yes, the digital backbone has actually been the lifeline during this particular crisis for businesses, relief, and education. And very true, and this will, we look forward to more cooperation on this front. I'd like to now invite Mr. Arvind Khurana. He's Regional Vice President for the Indian Subcontinent at Solace Corporation to share his views. Mr. Khurana.
Thanks, Charu. His Excellency Ajay, thanks to ASSOCHAM, and good evening to everyone. I would share probably the opposite of the views of Jagdish, representing a Canadian IT company doing business in India. So we headquartered in Ottawa in business since 2001. We do data movement between applications. We are in the integration space, and we have been in India since 2013. Offices across 3 cities, Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore, and have been working with the Government of Canada, His Excellency Nadir Patel and his team, and working with the counterparts in the Indian government, trying to work for the Canadian company here in India. We've been quite successful. We have customers across verticals, which include banking, which include telco, which include government. As Jagdish rightly mentioned, I think it's all about real-time data and scale, and that's where we are playing a role today in the Indian as a region. We work with all partners, including Tech Mahindra, so TCS, Tech Mahindra, Wipro. These are the system integrators which we partner with. India is a very strategic country for us. We don't do any technology development in India, but India acts as a center of excellence for technology for all our global and local customers. So we don't develop anything, but we work with all the global customers with these SIs. We also work with the Government of India, and from the Digital India perspective, we work with Bombay Stock Exchange, with National Stock Exchange, with the income tax e-filing, with the largest bank of the country, whom unfortunately I can't name, and as well as both the telcos in Airtel and Jio. In today's world, I think everything needs to be real time, and data is the new oil. So that's where we operate in, that's where we work in. So we move data between applications, between different infrastructures. We help customers engage on a hybrid cloud journey, and we do it at an Indian scale. For example, income tax e-filing, if you look at the systems 5 years back, they used to crash every 31st of July because they won't be able to handle the burst which is required, because every Indian citizen is kind of filing their returns on the last very day. For 5 years, since the time we have been deployed it, we act as a burst handler, and we trickle feed the data to the backend systems at the speed they can take it. In telco domain, in both Airtel and Jio, we work in the O2A space. That means the customer onboarding runs on Solace, and this is real business for them. This requires that there is high availability, their systems are always available, and their systems can scale up to the number of customers signing up. We also work with them in the prepaid recharges. Airtel, for example, used to take almost like 30 minutes to recharge somebody's prepaid SIM. That would mean that the customer is dissatisfied and he's picking up phone and calling up their customer care centers. With Solace, as the Canadian technology, that has now come down to less than 5 seconds. And that's true for around 97.5% of their customers. These are the kind of solutions which we work with. The largest bank which I talked about, so that basically uses us for notification engine. So in notifications, for every credit or debit transaction, there is a notification SMS or a WhatsApp or an email which is sent to the customer. That notification, which are millions of them in a day, that also runs on Solace. Even every online transaction requires an OTP to be sent as per the RBI guidelines. We are deployed in that use case as well, and many more. So I would limit it to discussion around the digital India platform perspective. So whether it is the stock exchanges of the country, whether it is the telcos of the country or the banking, that's where we are deployed in. But yeah, totally opposite to what Jagdish mentioned. As an Indian IT company working with the Canadian, we're a Canadian IT company working with the Indian space. And there's much more to do, and obviously we're really getting up to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate the contribution to the Digital India Mission, and later I'm sure there'll be some questions for you, probing some more details. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Manish CGI from Vancouver. Warm welcome. We hope a very privileged to have you here on this panel as well. Thank you. Now I would like to ask Mr. Akshay Chaturvedi ji to please share his views. He is the Senior Vice President and Head Corporate and Commercial Banking at ICICI Bank Canada. Mr. Chaturvedi, your comments, please.
Thank you very much, Charu. His Excellency, Mr. Ajay Bisaria, thanks for your presence here. Mr. Manish, Consulate General, Mr. Deepak Sood, thanks for giving a very wide introduction of what we are to do. Thanks ASSOCHAM for organizing, as well as elite members of ASSOCHAM. So I'll divide my points into 2-3 categories. One, of course, those members who are attending this program and looking to Canada as a potential destination for themselves. Being ICICI Bank from India, and I would like to share some part of our journey in Canada and to give you an example of how Canada is business friendly for any of the companies which want to set up their operations here. We came in Canada in 2003 as one of the Indian bank, and as you know, banking is a little extra regulated industry or sector. In many countries, when we go, we have to go stepwise from a rep office to migrate to the branch and then to the subsidiary. While Canada embraced us in a ultimate way, which is directly as a subsidiary, which means that allowed us to raise deposits in Canada, and our deposits, as with other Canadian banks, deposit are insured by CDIC in Canada. So at par with other banks, we were given a full service license at the very beginning, unlike in many countries where our process of licensing to that stage is a stepwise licensing. So that's one of the examples. Now coming to the growth aspect of it, of course, the main resource for your growth is the manpower and the customers. On the manpower side, Canada definitely provides a very good diverse access to the talent pool across the world. Just to give you an example, we have people working in ICICI Bank Canada in a small team of around 200 plus people. We have people working who has experience in UK, US, Middle East, of course, India, Singapore. So this is a place which provides you accessibility to the diverse talent pool, irrespective of the international boundaries. Coming to the business opportunity, of course, when you are in a business of trust like banking, it makes a lot of sense that when you have your ready customers in the form of the diaspora here, who knows you very well, which definitely helps any of the Indian company considering the diaspora presence here. I would say that the whole ecosystem is quite friendly in terms of setting up of your businesses and running them well, providing access to countries beyond Canada. Canada, of course, boasts of their free trade agreements with almost 50 countries. As a banking subsidiary in Canada, of course, a lot of our I would say strategy or the aim of our presence here is precisely to enable trade and investment services between India and Canada. That is our primary role. And in that role, we of course partner with organizations who are looking to increase this business by providing or enabling a better service to the parties. So whether it is, let's say, Canadian MNCs like Bombardier going to India, whether it is Indian companies coming to Canada, like many of the Tata Group companies, Tech Mahindra, so in companies here. Similarly, the trade partners, everybody who is doing trading with India, and we provide almost, when I talk to customers, I tell them that, if you are our customer, we are providing you a banking service almost 20 hours a day, because, when we are off for the day, then, our Indian RM of your business will be working towards enabling your transaction. So basically, and more importantly, the funds, which of course are looking to India as a long-term investment destination. And there again, we are participating through our various, outlets in India, be it ICICI Securities on the advisory side, through AMC. So of course, those who are our Canadian members attending the seminar in ICICI is one of the largest bank having plethora of financial services in India. Coming to other important aspect, which is the individuals. Of course, Canada has been welcoming immigrants, and more we are seeing that Indian immigrants, both in the form of work permits and permanent resident, as well as students who are migrating to Canada. Now, that is another growing segment where we are very much keen in participating with various agencies to provide soft lending to each of the individual families that come here. And just to give you some idea of how we do it, is basically we are one of the only bank which can open account before even a person lending here. That account can be credited, and then person comes here, gets the account activated very easily and start using the account. So what we carry for an individual coming from India, whether individual or a company, is that your credibility in India, continues here because we are here. Similarly, a lot of companies in the current pandemic situation, I think we can't appreciate more about the ability for companies to open their accounts in Canada without even a director visiting Canada. So even companies have opened the accounts, they have started their operations. So those kind of abilities that we provide, and we really feel that we have a responsibility to, enable this Indo-Canada, collaboration, and we are thankful to all the stakeholders, including the High Commissioner Office, Consulate General, to enable this, and we continue to serve this sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chaturvedi. Yes, the credibility as well as the continuity and financial services are going to play a huge role going forward. Thank you so much for your words. I now request Mr. Rajiv Josar, Managing Director, India, Bombardier Transportation, to share his opening comments.
First of all, on behalf of Bombardier, I would like to thank ASSOCHAM for arranging today's session and the invitation. Honored to have His Excellency Mr. Ajay Bisaria and the industry leaders to share the stage. I would like to give you some overview of Bombardier's operations in India in the last 2 decades. As you all know, Bombardier took over at Trans in 2001. We started at that point of time our operations with 4 to 5 different products. Our main customer has been Indian Railways, it still continues. And we had a headcount of roughly 100 and 150 people with 25 million USD as a turnover. We saw a huge possibility to grow in India. As you all know, railway transportation plays a significant role in the socio-economic development of any country. We saw a need for a safe, reliable, quality transportation system, and the demand was increasing. We created a vision. We wanted to be a full-fledged transportation company in India. In 2007, we won Delhi Metro Phase 2, which triggered this development of setting of the first private metro car facility in India. Bombardier as a company decided that we should invest in India. We invested over the last 2 decades almost close to 100 million USD in capacity, in technology, launching new products. So I think if you see overall, Bombardier has really grown in India in the last 2 decades in all segments of railways. I'm very proud today to say that today we have 2 world-class manufacturing facilities in India, rather in one city called Baroda in Gujarat. And it's very unique because I guess this is the only city where you can produce a complete train in the same city. And we are serving today Indian customers, but we are also serving the global customers. Besides that, we have expanded ourselves. We have now a design engineering center, global design engineering center in Hyderabad. We expanded to have a software center in Baroda again. We have a signaling and information sector in Gurgaon. And we have several service teams who are deployed across the country to serve our customers 24/7. So it has been a journey of growth, a journey of expansion, a journey to cater various needs of the customer in India. I'm very proud today that we, despite the situation we are in this year, we won 2 significant contracts. The first semi-high-speed contract recently we won in May. And we won Agra Kanpur. This has put us also in a very significant growth path in India. We are currently 1,500 people, which are poised to increase by another 50% by 2022. Our backlog today has jumped by almost 3 times, close to 900 million USD, which is a significant growth from where we started our journey 20 years back. And today, Bombardier is the only rail company in India which is present in all the segments, be it metro, commuter, surveys, the rail equipment, signaling. We are proud. We are also delivering our Honorable Prime Minister's vision of Make in India by making 100% trains out of India for the contracts which are awarded to us. We are also closely following the Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign. In fact, in most of our contracts, our local content has been more than 70 to 75%. And in true sense, we are vocal for local, but also local for global. We are proud that the equipment or the trains which we have provided to our customer today, almost 5 million commuters are traveling on a daily basis. This is pre-COVID counts, obviously. And our locomotives or the technology we have given process almost 300,000 track kilometers every day. So in India, we have grown significantly. We are not just a train maker, but we are providing a full range, a full suite of products, solutions to our India customers. We are ready for outside. We, in fact, have delivered 75 trains to Australia with very high quality, well recognized. So I would say the growth path, what we have seen in the last 2 years is a testimony of how business flourishes in India. It is a testimony of how our investment has paid off. And it also has put us into a significant position to be a driver, a growth engine in the rail segment, providing innovative solutions to our country. And I strongly believe that all the ministries, the SPVs have been very focused to provide a very high standard, quality, reliable and safe transportation system for the country. In a nutshell, I would say the climate is right, the timing is right for industries to set up their base, for having technology collaboration to explore the full potential of the India market, but also a market to be explored from India to outside. I would say companies can express their full potential if they set it up with a campaign that our Honorable PM has set forth. And I think it's the right time. And then with the examples of companies like Bombardier, we should use this opportunity to provide solutions for India to develop, but also for outside. With this, I would also like to thank both the Indian and the Canadian governments, high commissions, who have been very supportive in our journey so far. I can just recall one example of that. As I said, when we set up the facility in India, it took only 18 months to set up a factory, but also deliver a first train out of the factory. And I don't think anywhere in the world we would have seen such a fast track process to facilitate a business setup in India. So these are real good examples, and therefore I really thank that today whatever we have achieved has been a good example of the collaborations that we have seen between both the governments, the ease of doing business in India. And with that, I would thank everyone for arranging this session and allowing us to express ourselves. Thank you, and over to you, Chairman.
Thank you very, very much, all panelists. Thank you, Rajiv. You take me back to ABB when I was in Baroda. We share the common boundary, and it's a beautiful plant out there. So thank you so much. It is nostalgic to be what you were saying, because one has seen that when one was working there. Thank you so much. So may I now, ladies and gentlemen, invite the chief guest for the evening, His Excellency Mr. Ajay Bisaria, to share with us his views. Over to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Deepak ji. Thank you for this wonderful session that you put together. Vineet Agarwal ji, Deepak, Charu ji, and all the wonderful panelists that we heard right now on giving an overview, a snapshot of the situation in finance, in IT, in infrastructure. Thank you very much for that. I think that was a very useful panel to get a flavor of what's happening on the India-Canada corridor. Let me start by congratulating ASSOCHAM on your centenary. It's been a wonderful journey. I've been meeting Deepak ji in various capacities over the decades, I would say, but it's great to see that ASSOCHAM is deeply active and has also decided to be active in the India-Canada corridor. So, and also very warm good morning to folks in Canada, and good evening to everyone in India who's tuned in. I think the fact that we're having this conversation is important, that we are thinking not just of the pandemic, but also of the post-pandemic business environment. And I think that is certainly positive, that we are beginning to have these conversations and are eager to get out to a normal situation as soon as we can. What I thought I'd do today in the context of what we've already heard is speak about four different issues. Of course, the first is the public health crisis and the pandemic that we are facing. The second is the economic crisis that is kind of generated by this pandemic. The third is the state of play in the India-Canada economic corridor. Where do we go? And the fourth, I thought I'd touch on some of the opportunities already mentioned in this panel, but some of what are the opportunities that we have during the pandemic and in the post-pandemic period. What we are facing, certainly, I think, everyone realizes is the biggest crisis of the century. It's combining elements of the Spanish flu of 100 years ago and of the Great Depression in terms of the economic crisis that is upon us. But what we are seeing is resolve in countries to get over it and get to a situation of normalcy as soon as we can. In India, we know the numbers are high, 6.2 million cases, but 5.2 million recovered. So we have a situation of a very low fatality rate despite a high infection rate. And we are hoping that this story continues and that we get out of this crisis very soon. The determination is to not let this crisis bog us down, but to open the economy and learn to live with this virus for a while. I think Canada has pretty much a similar view. What we are seeing in Canada is being called the second wave because schools have opened and there are all kinds of activity which is resumed. But again, the determination is to continue living with the virus. So both countries are really open for business and with all the physical distancing norms that we need to work on. The economic crisis that is coming out of this is certainly the more worrying part of the situation. What we are being told by the IMF and World Bank, of course, is that there will be a contraction. We were seeing some contraction in India, but we're also seeing the green shoots of recovery in several sectors where we've reached pre-crisis levels of activity. So we may end up with some contraction of the economy in the calendar year. In the G7 larger economies like Canada, the contraction is predicted to be much more in the tune of 9-10%. And we hope India gets away with a smaller contraction. But more importantly, we are hoping that 2021 is the year of a recovery and that it's a V-shaped recovery. So this is something we both are continuing to work on, to live with the virus and to continue working on the getting out of the economic crisis. In India, both countries also have delivered stimulus packages which are pretty much similar, 10% roughly of the GDP. The Canadian package was similar to the Indian package, $270 billion, except that we, in India, we decided to use the crisis as an opportunity, and you saw that the fiscal and monetary stimulus came embedded with deep-seated economic reforms, which are now being called the second generation economic reforms in labor, in laws, in financing, in agriculture, in education. So a great deal of reform has taken place in anticipation of the recovery and in an attempt to get out of it in an accelerated way. So I think this is the rough context in which we see India-Canada economic relations. The cooperation has been strong between these two G20 economies, as it should be between strategic partners. We are strategic partners since 2015, when Prime Minister Modi visited Canada. And this is something where we've been witnessing a gradual strategic transformation in the relationship, but even more so in the last year when we had two new governments with new mandates. What we are saying was Trudeau 2.0 and Modi 2.0. The conversation has escalated, and even during pandemic times. The two prime ministers have spoken to each other multiple times about the pandemic, about vaccines, about such issues. We've also had their conversation in the G20 context. The two foreign ministers have spoken to each other multiple times. The trade ministers are in continuous conversations at least half a dozen times. And I think the point is that these are two very similar polities and economies which are have shared values of democracy, of rule of law, of pluralism, and we value the diversity of our countries. And I think an important point to remember from a trading point of view is that both of us are trading nations. So India has renewed its commitment to multilateralism, to globalization, because we feel that is the way the world should be. The Atmanirbhar Bharat and self-reliant India is something that is completely in consonance with multilateralism and globalization, which we feel should be revisited and reformed. We have in both countries a great deal of trade coming from the external sector, from remittances, and I think that is a situation that's not going to change. You mentioned, Deepak also mentioned the level of trade. It is now 2019. We crossed the level of Canadian dollars 10 billion. And if you add services to it, which IT companies like Tech Mahindra and Solace have contributed to, then we were over 10 billion US dollars, or it was about $3 or $4 billion more in terms of services. So I think already there is a huge deal of trade taking place. The potential, of course, is certainly more, but the big story has been the investment story. From a level of just about $5 billion of investment by the Canadian funds and investment firms like Fairfax and Brookfield, we now have over $55 billion of commitments in the Indian economy. And I think that itself is a huge factor which defines a lot of the opportunities that are available. So where is this Canadian money going? It's going in infrastructure. Certainly, it's also going into real estate, the real estate offers that we are making. It's also going into energy, and it's going into logistics, and it's going into it's beginning to consider the startup space as well. So these are the opportunities this will throw up. For instance, in startups, we've had investments of since 2016 of over $60 billion, and that includes our $27 billion plus unicorns that have been created. So these provide Canadian funds to the opportunity to write the big checks and cash in and get the returns, because in OECD countries, these funds tend to get 2, 3%, 4% returns, but India has offered them returns with IRRs that range from 10 to 20%. There have been some exits and cash outs as well. So the India opportunity for the Canadian funds has been huge. You mentioned the 600 Canadian companies in India, 1,000 MSMEs. They are hugely active, and they recognize the kind of range and depth of the Indian market. On government's part, we continue to work on two critical issues. One is the economic partnership agreement. We've revived the conversations. We are even thinking of a less ambitious, smaller, bite-sized agreement, which we can both agree on. And we're working on an investment protection agreement as well. So both conversations are on, and we're hoping we could have some deliverables soon. On the trade side, we've already heard some of the companies, but the Canadian companies in India, I'll just mention the sectors, are in IT, are in engineering services, are in aviation, transportation, that is Bombardier, in business, in aircraft, in processed foods, pharmaceuticals, health science, financial services, banking, and business consulting. So this is the profile of some of the companies.
Your Excellency, I am not able to hear you. Santosh was on the console.
Yes, I think we lost Mr. Bisaria's line. I'll just check with his office.
I'm sorry, we just lost you in between, Your Excellency.
Okay. Okay, so I'm back. I think this is the new digital world. You keep losing people, and hopefully they keep coming back. So I think the point at which I heard you speaking was the overall picture of trade, and the point I was making was that we are in multiple sectors where there are opportunities, but the capital flow sector is a huge sector. The overall picture is of a Canada that is putting in technologies into India. We are harnessing a lot of technologies that are available in Canada. Many of the companies Forests come with embedded technology, and of course the financial capital that is coming in. And from the Indian side, India is a huge exporter now of not just IT services and but also knowledge, and also the human capital. So the human capital which Canada is harnessing from India is a unique part of the story. I could mention that India is today the largest source country for all immigrants in Canada. Of the 310 or thousand that came in last year, 80,000 were from India. So of immigrants, of students, of tourists, of workers, India is the largest contributor. Today, the diaspora is 1.6 million and fast growing. And again, this is a unique factor in the relationship because this diaspora is in leadership positions in business, in politics, in culture, in academia. So you have 4 ministers in the Trudeau cabinet who are Indo-Canadians. You have 22 members of parliament who are Indo-Canadians, and you have a large number of members of provincial parliaments in Ontario, in BC, and so on. So a huge ballast to this relationship comes from the leadership of the Indian diaspora. I think one other important factor is the education opportunity. The students that are coming in, 230,000 today, they happen to be people who bring in not just their human capital as potential uh, workers and potential permanent residents, but also bring in $5 billion annually of tuition fee alone. So this is another aspect of the relationship that is important. So let me quickly dive into the opportunities. You know, in pandemic times, we are in conversations on vaccines, for instance. We know that India is not just the pharmacy of the world, but India will also be the vaccine producer of the world. No matter which of the 23 vaccines is finally approved, it is India which will scale up and produce this. So this is something which we continue to discuss with Canada. We discussed, of course, IT and digitization and the huge opportunity that digitization gives, which has been even accelerated during the pandemic. And this is again something that India can provide. Post-pandemic, we feel there would be about 5 major sectors and 3 new areas, and I'll just quickly list them considering the time. Pharmaceuticals, steel pipes, chemicals, agro products. Now, Canada is both an exporter and importer of agro products. You know, you mentioned pulses, but there is also a huge organic market for organic products, and also automotive parts. Of course, this we are talking of the post pandemic era. And there are opportunities in our traditional sectors like clothing, textiles, furnishings, furniture. But one other new sector that is important is Canada's large market for public procurement. That is a $22 billion worth of market for public procurement of goods and services, which is also being available. So I think the opportunities in Canada are huge. We tend to see Canada, particularly for our IT companies, as a North American space. But even within that North American space, Canada is offering a lot of opportunities comparable in many cases to available in the US and distinct in other cases. So I think I'll stop right there. I must apologize in advance. I have another webinar to jump into, but I'll stay with you for a few minutes after this. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and for the guiding remarks and the opportunities that you have opened up. Just taking a cue from your comments, especially on digitization, technology, and education. With the new education policy opening opportunities and allowing global universities to open campuses in India, what would be your projection about, Canadian institutions considering opening the campuses here? And the other area where we'd like to have some, sense of where do you think it would go? With the farm sector presenting new avenues for cooperation, is there an opportunity for Canadian firms engaged in agriculture to be looking at India?
Certainly, I think both these sectors you mentioned are very important areas of opportunity. In education, we've had a couple of webinars on this. My sense out of that education webinar was that the opportunities are huge because this is a very forward-looking education policy which lays down new opportunities and opens opportunities and new rules. But at the moment, everyone is struggling with the pandemic because Canadian universities are struggling. And really, the sense is wait for this to get over. We will consider campuses outside. And you mentioned flights. Right now, students are doing all their courses online, and there is also a problem of both visas and of non-availability of in-person classrooms. So I think we are going through the crisis phase. Only in 2021 will this real opportunity manifest itself. But I think there is a huge potential. And on agri, again, there's a huge, kind of area out there to harness. We are now talking of ag tech more than simple imports and exports. Those will, of course, go on. But ag tech is again an area in which we're doing a seminar. I had gone to Saskatchewan, which is the agricultural heart of Canada. And their unique technologies are of great interest to us. And this ties into a new agricultural revolution of the 1991 kind that we are attempting in the agri sector. We need the technologies. We need Canadian technologies. These are state of the art. And I'm sure we'll be able to harness them in multiple ways.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My next question that we have from the audience is, Mr. Jagdish Mitra, is for you. Any specific new elements in commodities, goods and services, areas of investment that have emerged in view of the impact of COVID on the trade dynamics that industry on both sides can leverage? Your comments on this, please.
We probably got accentuated and in speed of production. It's related to digital products. So we see it's probably going to be where physical and digital products will start to combine, and there we see a big opportunity for both design companies and India and IT and Canadian design companies to collaborate. So a whole lot of work around sensor-driven work, whole lot of products in that area is industries out of COVID as a new product, new services industry that's going to come out.
Have we lost Mr. Mitra's connection?
Yes, it seems so.
Yes, there's a question. Is there any opportunity for telehealth? There is, one question from the audience. Would you like to take that as
well? Yeah, significantly large. Can you hear me, Charu?
Yes, it seems so.
Significantly large. Can you hear me, Charu? Can you hear me? 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 Charu? Can you hear
Yes, we can. I think.
I will just interrupt this conversation. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for joining us and spending your time out. Thank you so much. We all are really, really happy with the conversations and the inputs we received from you. Thank you. And if there is anything that we could do for the purpose of business or relationships between the two countries, do feel free. Let us know at ASSOCHAM, which stands with about 4.5 lakh members, would be very, very happy to participate and partner any such activity that takes place. We are very, very hopeful of expansion of this business. Thank you so much, and looking forward for another opportunity very soon.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you.
Ajay ji, you're on mute. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Mr. Mitra, back to you. Yes, Mr. Mitra, you were.
So Charu, your question was around telehealth, and I think we ourselves are seeing significant opportunity in telehealth. We've launched a new telehealth platform in North America, and there is an opportunity significantly of which is a post-COVID development, of course, where there's a lot of initiatives around telehealth and different segments within telehealth that are starting to take leads. So even telehealth is no longer just a generic word. There are specializations in telehealth that are starting to happen. And I see a great opportunity and potential in collaboration between Canada and India. I think there's probably going to be a fair amount of dialogue on regulation as to how to make sure that both the and their sharing of advice related to telehealth can be monitored and managed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mitra. There is a question here for Mr. Rajiv Josar. Would appreciate if you could come in. So with the recent relaxation in the FDI limits in the defense and insurance sector, what would be the response of the Canadian actors in these spaces vis-a-vis investing in India?
So I'm not sure about the difference and so on, but at least for the rail segment, I would say, because that's where I have the experience from. I would say, if you have seen recently, the government has announced the privatization of railways on some specific routes. So they would like to go for a PPP model, wherein they have requested investors to come in with a solution, with a mobility solution, where they can bring the knowledge stock, they can maintain, they can become a concessionaire for 35 years. So I see that as a very big step, and that could be a very attractive, let us say, proposition for the investors who would like to come in. Overall, I would say there are other sectors which I'm aware, but not in great detail. But I would say government has been trying to come up with some innovative funding mechanisms in some of these sectors like railway and also the metro operations.
Mr. Vineet Agarwal, have some comment on logistics and trade and economics, and what are some 2-3 things that India can diversify its international supply chains?
I think there are lots of opportunities there because Canada has a massive rail network, for example, which even Mr. Josar just mentioned, and hence Bombardier has grown from that basic base. And so the opportunities for India to really leapfrog into a multimodal environment where more than 60-65% of the traffic today, freight traffic, is by road. So if we are able to diversify into multimodal, be it rail or even coastal shipping in other areas, taking the example of what has happened in Canada and getting Canadian companies to come and invest here, I think that's a very big opportunity. Clearly, the trade element is obviously there, and forwarding takes place, or there are companies from Canada investing into certain kinds of logistics here. What we just talked about, agri, there would be companies interested in cold chains, possibly in India as well. So there are, again, from a logistics and supply chain perspective, again, a whole host of opportunities that are available.
Thank you, Vineet. There's one question for Mr. Arvind Khurana. What role do you foresee for Solace in advancing the India-Canada partnership in the coming years?
Sure. I think in all the organizations in India, whether it's government or corporates, they're providing the services to the public using digital channel, and these services require real-time data streaming across various systems for competition, for analytics, or just for information sharing. And any such service provider in India, especially because of the population and sheer size, they need to design a service that can scale, and that's where Solace can help. So we have solutions which are hardware appliances, we have software, as well as the cloud options. So I think there's hardware appliances for scale and the software and the cloud for others. That's where Solace can play a role.
Thank you, Mr. Khurana. Mr. Chaturvedi, now I think with this we come to our last question of the evening, and the time has drawn close with the last question to you, sir. So what goals and objectives should both countries aim to fulfill in developing a 5 to 10-year future roadmap to increase cooperation? Since we've seen this 1 year almost kind of, it's a write-off year as many have called it, but going forward, your views, please.
Thanks, Sadhu. Of course, countries have been working towards new avenues, and I think as we see, the dependence on the global supply chain has to be, maintained for countries like Canada, where they need a trustworthy partner. And on the other side, India has been taking encouraging step in terms of ease of doing business, as well as the Make in India, complete future. So in that sense, I think Canada and India continues to be very, very complementary economies, both from the perspective of resources, deficit, as well as, the manpower. So we very clearly today where we stand as compared to that, there is a huge potential, and that potential is clearly coming from the fact that, pension funds are already looking at India, not only for their investment returns, but also for participating in the India infrastructure story, as well as other segments. We clearly see that, with this, more and more traction will build up, and whatever enablers are required from government side, be it, let's say entering into the SEPA, which is long pending, or let's say FIPA, which is again on the investment side. Those kind of enablers will definitely prove to catalyze the whole process and will take us to a complete different exponential growth. So I clearly see that in next 10 years, being these two great nations, one of course second largest in the size and the other second largest in the population. So I think these two nations can definitely bring a complete different level of partnership, and which is mutually beneficial to not only the economies, businesses, but to individuals in both the countries.
Thank you. Yes, we surely hope that these agreements, are realized soon. Mr. Deepak Sood, please, I invite you to thank all our panel and all our participants and attendees also.
Thank you so much. I think it was a very fruitful discussion that we've had. So thanks to all the delegates, all the participants who are listening to this conversations. Thank you all the panelists. Obviously, Ajay, an old friend, and His Excellency Ajay Bisaria has just stepped out. Thanks to him and his entire team. We have Manish Ji here from the CGI of Vancouver. Thank you so much, sir. An entire team of ASSOCHAM Primus partners who has helped us to put this together. I think there are very, very strong complementarities that come here. Manish Ji, thank you for being with us. It's nice to see you. The cameras were off earlier. So would you have a very brief comment to make before I do close? You're on mute, Manish Ji.
Thank you, Mr. Sood, and all the panelists. It was an enlightening discussion, which I greatly benefited. I'm just a month old in Vancouver, So I'm still learning my ropes, and I look forward to interact with each one of you individually as well as in virtual platform. And there are, as High Commissioner has pointed out, there is huge potential, and trade and economic opportunities and relationship will be the cornerstone of our relationship. And we look forward to help our Indian companies as well as Canadian friends to work both ways for the benefit of our two countries. Thank you very much for having me in this first business webinar, which I am attending as in the current post. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and really, really grateful that you did take this time out, and we look forward to not only talking to you online, but very soon. And I wish that we all are out flying planes and back in offices and meeting together. So I'm going to definitely catch you in Vancouver very, very shortly. Probably one of the most beautiful cities that I have ever been to, and I always intend to go back. So very clearly, thank you so much. And I know that you are here, so I have clearly 3 more years to come and see you before that. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
Of course, all of you are invited in the beautiful city of Vancouver.
Thank you so much.
Great business opportunities in this part of the world also. For
Absolutely.
the IT, for the agri sector, for any sector, I think.
Absolutely. So very clearly, both governments are talking about the complementarities and also looking at investments inward and outward. Because ultimately, there's a huge opportunity that is opened up post this. I mean, why we are through, but post this is opening up, and therefore both countries will look at investments in a large sense, and I'm sure business and money travels where the opportunity is. And very clearly, as we stand, we are very, very confident that our partnership of these two countries would be 3x in the next 5 years. And it's not going to be an incremental jump that one is trying to talk about. So once again, thank you very, very much, each one of you, for being and participating with us, right from our own ICICI Bank, which helps set up the business to the IT companies that we are talking about, and the Canadian companies back in India. And obviously, Bombardier is very, very close to me because I've had some linkages there personally. So very, very, anything, anytime, whatever you feel ASSOCHAM needs to do for the industry, for the relationships, please do reach out to us. My international division, myself, our senior vice president, president, all of us are available at any point in time wherever this is required. Thank you so much. And dear Charu, you did a wonderful job as usual. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Job of International Affairs.